All right, it is Sunday, the weekend of February 25th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Let's go ahead and look at the price action for the indexes this week, starting with the NQ as always. So, last Friday, actually Sunday, we kind of talked about, I think we started talking when the price candle was around here-ish, and we were saying, like, if we were going to see higher, we needed it to regain this level, gain a little bit above it, and then actually hold at that level to produce a new high. It did not and fell below this level that we'd marked out at 17,720-ish. Fell below that, and then we ended up retesting that and failing on two separate 4-hour candles. That was actually, given where it held and then broke below, a great short opportunity. We had this other potential short leg that we were talking about. If it couldn't gain above here, that we would be looking for it to make a new low lower than this low, since this area had been tested at around the 17,500s. So we knew that it needed to make another low, and this was the next area. So if you took this short, you were able to take your profits here, get about a 300 point short on there, 300 to 250, 300 point short there. That was good. And then, I think everyone kind of had their eyes on the NVIDIA report. Regardless of that, we as technical traders don't care too much about the specifics of that, but we do want to know when really big volatility events are going to hit the market, and that certainly was one. If we look at the 1 hour's chart here, you can actually see that after hours, it actually had opened here, 17,500, and wicked all the way down to essentially 150 points lower than that. And then actually rocketed back up. And this was the volatility that it needed to kind of push up and regain all those levels that we talked about to actually make new highs. And sure enough, in the next 2 days, that we got back to the highs and ended up making a new all-time high up here at around 18,000. We'll call that 150. I think it's about 148-ish, but either way, technically a new all-time high based on this volatility push here. We have kind of lost the higher level here. If we kind of mark this out right there, that level was lost around 18,020-ish. We could see this come down all the way to 17,900 moving forward, or potentially down here to 17,860-ish, and then potentially move higher. What's really the kind of major important thing here is that we've really gained all the levels that we've lost. So right now we're looking for longs again, whereas we started to kind of look for shorts with the price action from back here. Juiciest level, I think, down here, 17,723. If we can retest that, you could certainly look for a really good long for a potential move toward a new high. But we'll have to kind of see what happens this week. Price, what do you see on the chart, if I missed anything?
Well, I really like, so we're on this leg up. We need to hold the area here that produced this leg up. And, you could technically say that very locally it was right here, and that we've come down below that, and now we've started a trend down. But this is a very good level in here to hold. So we could see it come down here to this level, and it's all going to depend on here, because we're either going to see the level hold and us come back up here, or what I think might happen is this is a good spot too because of that good level, but I really think a lot of those breakout buyers that were right here need to be sweating.
Yeah.
So I really do like that spot there. And then once we get down there at this spot that produced the low, I really do think that there could be a turnaround here to the upside. But the next level that I see on the chart is right here, after this breaking that occurred right here on the 4-hour. On the daily there, it looks like a pretty normal retracement after a brand new high, and that would be a higher low look there. So nothing super bearish on the longer term.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, so we're looking at kind of different levels, but kind of looking for the same thing, looking for longs. And that would probably not even be changed until we lost this level again down here. Even.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense. I like your concept talking about like these breakout buyers need to sweat. That makes sense. Get their stops and their liquidity slurped up before moving. But yeah, locally 7,900 or 17,900. You could even see a look like this, where we kind of lose that and then sort of regain it and make a minor higher low and then move back. But we'll have to see. That's probably not the biggest level on the chart, to your point. So we'll have to see what happens going forward. If we see some of these lower levels that we pointed out, these would be the best risk to reward for longs, obviously. But you want to have tight stops because it wouldn't be too much further below for a lower low. So let's manage your risk. Let's go ahead and look at the S&P, see if there's any differences there. I would say this chart is significantly cleaner than the others. Obviously this is a pretty definitive higher high, whereas on the NASDAQ we made a minor higher high and then sold it off. This one made a pretty definitive higher high and also is holding the low of the range. We kind of need to see it regain sort of this area right here. I'd say we'll call that 5108-ish to potentially move back to highs. But we can't lose where it is now, essentially 5091. Otherwise, we're going to end up retesting probably around here-ish, where we have this level marked 5040. Now, that could still, again, be a totally viable long as well. But the way that I see it is we're either going to hold here and move back to the highs or a new high, or we're going to fail this and move back down and potentially do something like this. Still, again, looking for longs here. But we could even see that move lower down to, maybe to your point, talking about the breakout buyers, 4,990-ish, something like that. I know that was the level that we were looking for the bounce last time, but ended up making a minor new low and then ripping higher. So we'll have to kind of see how that plays out. What do you think about the S&P chart?
I like that it's holding up here. If you want to really zoom in there, technically it might be below the level, but they could just as easily print back up above it.
If you want to pull up the 1 hour chart, we could. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about a few points here.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a pretty slow time. So here in the morning they could easily come back up above 5100 and be right back in the range and going. But I completely agree with the level that this is where we need to hold and then gain up here to produce higher. And if we don't see this hold and go up, what we'll see is it come back down about to exactly where you were saying in this range as the first test. And then coming down as far as here at 5,005 or even lower before putting in the higher low in order to put in all-time high, right?
Yeah, and we are making pretty consistent all-time highs, so it wouldn't be unheard of to see another one of those so quickly.
Right.
Eventually we'll have to have like a more meaningful pullback. If you look at the daily or the weekly chart, we're getting pretty extended at this point. Not that this is invalid price action. I mean, this whole time in here, there hasn't really been any reason to be bearish. I mean, we've talked about on some of the other charts that there were places where you could go short, but on these higher time frames, there really hasn't been a single lower low in a really long time. So we're still long-term bullish until that changes. Let's go ahead and talk about the RTY. Probably the most interesting chart that we could talk about this week. It's had the most uncertain price action. What do you think about this chart?
Well, here on the 4 hour, let's see, where were we the last time I recorded? About here, we did lose the level here and came back down. But since then, we've come back and tested it. It didn't quite hold that level. Right in here is what we wanted to hold at 2017. Didn't quite do that, but it is holding inside the leg here of this. So that's a decent look, and we could still see it close up above. But what we do need to see is it come back up to here. And if we don't, we will expect lower. So if it doesn't get up here, we could see down there. That's what it looks like to me right now. On the daily, we did come up higher, and that would still be inside the leg of the overall leg here. So it looks it looks good for upward. And the fact that it's kind of spooky here is probably a good indication that it's a good long.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, I mean, I would say this chart is certainly at like we'll call it like an inflection point, right? Like what happens at this level is probably going to determine whether we're going to see a big up move or a big down move. I would say that I completely agree with your levels. Like this level obviously needs to be regained. That's the one that sent us down on this leg. We need to regain that failure to move back to highs. And if we don't, we have to make a new low lower than the previous low, which is kind of somewhere down here where you marked. Interestingly, that is close to the major line that we've marked here, 1940. That you really, if you're a bull, you don't want to see that lost. That would be a reversal of the trend, right? We'd see a definitive lower low even on the daily, and then we'd be talking about, potentially seeing this 1865, which we've marked. That's the 618 fib from the big move up from the previous failure that sent us all the way up to near all-time high last. So that's a big projection, but probably the most significant level, and that's also probably why over this long-term period we saw consolidation around that area. But actually, let's go ahead and look back at the monthly there. We haven't closed the monthly candle yet, but we can talk about this now. Every time we keep testing these highs again, we get more and more closes up here. The thing that I like, and you pointed this out, we're getting higher closes above this time, and also we're holding the low of the range this time, so we could potentially see this move that you plotted out where we actually have a huge move and then come back and hold at the key level that we've been kind of talking about needing to break through, and then pushing back to the highs. I think this whole move, back to the highs could take a bit longer, but like we were saying, we could see this move right here kind of decide the next major move. If we can gain above, we can start pushing back toward 2100 and seeing what happens. If not, we're going to make a big move down. But I still think that this would be a nice hold to push to new highs. There's still no reason to be bearish on this right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. What do you see on gold? Has anything changed there? I think we've done some good gaining on gold.
Yeah, absolutely. Here on the weekly, it's a little harder to see. But here, let's see, where were we? Yeah, okay. So we came up above the level here that produced this low, and it was a lower low than previous, which gives us the fuel that we need to come back up above and retest. So honestly, if it came back down to 2030, it looks like a really good long to me. And we'd be looking to target even as high as 2080. Not necessarily as a first profit target, but perhaps a second profit target. That's a pretty good zone. And I think that's pretty realistic over the next week, or even higher. But we're regaining this level here, and it's the one that broke and came down. So we need to come back up above 2055 and then hold it, and then we'd be able to see all-time high. Without that playing out, we'll probably come back down even lower than we have. Yeah. 1990 at least.
Yeah, what I see on this chart is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to say, I think we really need to, on this leg, I think we need to regain above 2055. Because, if these were the low, like everyone who got in long here, their stops were just below, and this candle right here just slurped all those stops and pushed us up. If we're going to keep going with all that liquidity, we need to meaningfully gain where, the failure that took us down there, which is right around that 2055. You could call it, there's a range there, obviously. 2060, 2055. We need to meaningfully gain and get closes up there. Otherwise, we'll probably end up making that lower low, like you were saying. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't see another higher low on the way up there, but we can't test back down here at the lows again without having gained. Otherwise, it's going to look like lower to me.
Yeah, so it looks like a stair-stepping ladder to me right now. So this is the level that brought us down. We just gained it, so we got all these stops right here, and now if we can come up to this spot here, we'll get all of these stops, and that'll give us the fuel to give us all of these stops, and then
Right.
who
I
knows
completely
what
see
happens
that.
when we get up here.
So all the shorts will stop out and buy
and
push
be
it up
buys,
even more.
right?
Right, and I think you can see that, even though we're talking about what could happen, on the lower time frames, a 4-hour time frame, this looks so constructive, right? So we failed to break above here, made some new lows, and then used that liquidity to kind of shoot up and gain that range. And then we've come back down, tested it, and we're holding it currently. So that looks like a constructive move that we want to see this like play out that you marked the last time that we discussed this. So we want to see this range hold and move back to the highs. This is kind of part of that. So on the short time frame, seeing this level hold 2040, as long as it does, we should end up testing the previous level that we were talking about that we need to regain. If not, we could come lower before doing so, attempting to regain. But right now, this looks very constructive. There's no reason to say that we're going to make lows yet. We'll have to see what happens. Let's go ahead and look at the Dow briefly. Very similar to the S&P chart. Obviously, tech is kind of like fueling some of this rally in terms of the weighting, but it doesn't mean there isn't tradable price action on anything else. I would actually say that the Dow looks quite a bit more tradable than some of these other names. Much easier to trade price action. This is certainly one of those things. We had this idea that maybe this could come down a little bit and then move higher. It ended up making a minor new low here on this price action and then blasting higher again. So kind of the same thing with the S&P. As long as we hold this area, and yeah, I guess that's right, about 39,100-ish in there, we'll continue to make new highs. If we break below that, we'll need to either regain and move to new highs or fail and move back down to potentially look for more longs. But it's not really any difference to really discuss with this over on the S&P chart. They are very similar. You see anything that I missed on this chart?
No, so this is what we'd identified previously last time we recorded. And so we identified this area here as the level that needed to be closed above, and the moment it did do that, it went to our next area here. So while it did come down low, and we're not advising on any one of these yellow lines to be like smash market and go up, but it's still, our idea still proved to play out, if not on our time frame.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see what happens if we hold this week or if we break down a little bit. I also want to say that this move down is quite likely. To kind of beat a dead horse, your concept about everyone who broke out bought here, the big boys want to slurp that liquidity, so they might push the market down there, make them sweat, make them panic, sell, or do whatever, and then push the market higher. You see that constantly, because now the area that was resistance now acts as support. So it's all the same concept under different names. We'll have to see if we move down, new highs, or move up. Let's go ahead and talk about oil. What do you think about this oil chart? I think it looks so constructive.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd done a little squiggle there before we started recording, but it was just how we'd kind of gone sideways here, and I think we both kind of saw the same thing where there's kind of stop losses building here, and you can already see it starting to play out here this afternoon. We both kind of think that it might come down below these stop losses, maybe even a little further here. We've got a really good level here that produced this low. That would be a really good hold, and that's why the yellow line that goes there. I really like this playing out here. It looks like it's taking place right now to me.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite likely that we'll see that play out, if not this week, but then the week after that. I think that this is quintessential. Like, if this plays out and we regain up here, this is a great long at this exact level to gain. And there's a lot of price history that suggests that that's pretty firm level if we get there. This was the last area I tried to hold before attempting to break out and then dumping. You know, every time that we've come back into the high of the range here, it's held at that level. So if we lose this, then regaining it, this is a no-brainer long if we see that happen again. So suffice to say, I don't think our call has changed. We want to see over 80 bucks and clear above these previous highs of this leg. You have anything else to add?
I really like that 4-hour look there. You can see how we've come up above. We've closed above this here. Now what I'd really like to see is this range here that produced that swing hold right in this leg. So that's why, you know, this whole range here is very relevant.
No, I like
that.
that.
If we can hold that, I really like it for higher.
That was the big level on the way up too on this time frame. Like you know, on the way down, and then that wick slurping up everything and then just blasting off. So, you know, it is a range, but somewhere in this area right there, you know, it's between 74 and 73-ish, something like that, or 73.50 and 74, something like that. Looks good. Yeah, we'll have to see. The dollar. What do you think about the dollar? We've had some price action like that we predicted and kind of marked out. We almost got the almost exact level of this particular wick, but it actually ended up moving back up and closing in the range. For now, looks like it might not hold and could potentially make another lower low, but it could also regain the level to gain and move back to the highs. I mean, those I feel like both of these predictions are still valid and still in play.
Absolutely. So what we did have is a lower low, which we were able to close back in the range of almost immediately. And we did see a test here. So we are on a little bit of a teeter-totter. What we need to do is come up above here, 104.2, or again, same look, we'll go lower. And this time it'll be further down, but it's almost exactly the same thing. This is still the level that needs to be gained, so I think we can quite move it. We could maybe be a little more pessimistic.
I'm looking exactly where you're looking. You can go ahead and drag it because I know we're looking at the same spot, literally right there at the failure that sent us up. Yep, perfect. Yeah, I think this is totally valid, and the level to gain is marked as well. So we'll have to see. It looks good though. I mean, the dollar has been resilient at these levels. So if you look at the daily, the drawdown there just looks like a slurp. So yeah,
it does
we'll have
to me too.
We'll have to see. What do you think of the banks? I mean, you marked some potential price action here. Looks like we may be getting the short leg of that, but it could easily regain and move higher.
Yeah, so it really does look like it's kind of coming down here. Just like you said, they can always decide to regain the level and send it upwards. But at this, you know, the way it's currently looking, it's lost the level there at 48. It's you know, really confirmed that it's a short idea right here. After closing below this wick. But you know, they can always just decide to hold it. So the major level is right here, and then we want to see it come back up above 50. And if we don't see that take place, we will see lower. But the first level to gain is 50 or 48, and then 49 here.
Yeah, I mean, I see that as well. I think it could be very easy to get caught up on this and be like, oh, this is the high of this attempt to move back up. We just need to close above that. This right here, this candle that attempted to regain and then sent us down, this is what needs to be regained. This level right here. So until we actually close above 50.50, we haven't regained. We could just continue. You know, you could see some price action move up here, but until we regain that, it does look like lower. Especially after this whole leg down, you know, from the past, well, I don't even know how long this is. It's been a while. Good Lord, TradingView. Since December. So, you know, that's kind of the major battleground level right now. We need this to be regained. Who could know? There's pretty volatile moves with the banks, obviously, so we could see it in either direction. Higher time frame levels. I think down here, 44, 45 would be potentially looking for longs again, and then the juicy levels down here, in the 41s and 42s that we've had marked out. You've had this box marked out for a really long time. That's been very important, so we could see that come into play again. But we'll have to wait and see. You have anything to add before we wrap things up? I think we'll leave these here because they could still both play out.
Yep, I think they're great.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning into the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. See you next week.
Till next time.